Nobody in Pinewood Heights gave Darnell Johnson a second glance, just another struggling black father in a forgotten trailer park, fighting to keep the lights on and his daughter fed. But when Catherine Wexler's luxury SUV broke down near his home, everything changed. The mechanic with worn-out tools fixed in 20 minutes what dealership technicians couldn't solve in days. By morning, 12 sleek black SUVs descended on his rusted trailer, executives in tailored suits offering life-changing money for his uncanny gift. What Wexler Industries couldn't know was that Darnell hadn't always fixed engines with duct tape and paperclips. Their database scrubbing had erased his name. The brilliant diagnostician whose whistleblowing about fatal defects had cost them billions. Now they needed the very man they'd destroyed, unaware that giving Darnell access to their classified project would uncover a weapon being built in plain sight, with his daughter caught in the crossfire. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. The alarm blared at 4:30 a.m., its harsh buzz cutting through the frigid air of the trailer. Darnell Johnson opened his eyes, the darkness pressing in from all sides as his breath formed small clouds in the unheated space. He silenced the alarm quickly and glanced over at Maya, his 9-year-old daughter, still curled under a thin blanket on the pull-out couch. Moving silently, he tucked an extra blanket around her small shoulders before shuffling to the cramped kitchen area. Their morning ritual was born of necessity. Darnell filled a battered kettle with water and set it on the hot plate. The stove hadn't worked in months. While it heated, he pulled a newspaper from his backpack and circled job listings with a stubby pencil, his eyes catching on experienced mechanic wanted and auto tech, previous experience required. Each listing felt like a small hope and a potential disappointment wrapped into one. Taped to the refrigerator door was a collage of overdue notices: electricity, water, lot rental for the trailer. The red final notice stamps seemed to glow in the dim light. Darnell touched one, gently, then squared his shoulders. Not today. Today was about finding work. "Daddy?" Maya's sleepy voice called from across the room. "Is it cold again?" "Just a little morning chill, baby girl," Darnell said, his voice warm despite the freezing trailer. "Hot chocolate coming up before school. The special kind." The special kind meant the same powdered mix they always had, but he'd add a pinch of cinnamon. Their luxury. Walking Maya to school took them through the heart of Pinewood Heights, a neighborhood that had seen better days. Most homes were like theirs, weathered trailers or small houses with patched roofs and fading paint. Neighbors nodded as they passed, a silent solidarity of the struggling. Mrs. Turner watered her small patch of flowers despite the foreclosure sign in her yard. Jackson Miller sat on his porch despite the early hour, lifting a hand in greeting as they passed. "You keep your head up today, Maya," Darnell said as they approached the school building. "Remember what I told you. Our circumstances don't define us. Our choices do," Maya finished with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. As they reached the school entrance, a group of girls pointed at Maya's shoes, hand-me-downs, with duct tape covering a hole in the left one. One girl whispered something that made the others laugh. Maya's shoulders hunched slightly, but she lifted her chin and walked past them. Darnell's heart ached as he watched her go, knowing she carried burdens no child should bear. Just before entering the building, Maya's teacher, Ms. Winters, stopped her with a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Everything okay at home, Maya?" Ms. Winters asked, concern evident in her voice. "You seem tired lately." "Everything's fine," Maya lied smoothly, the practiced response automatic. "Dad and I are good." Darnell turned away, Maya's brave face more painful than any bill collector's threats. The first auto shop was bustling with activity when Darnell arrived. The owner, Bill Thompson, barely looked at the resume Darnell held out. "Insurance won't let me hire without certification," he mumbled, though 3 young men without a day of formal training worked openly in the garage behind him. The second shop was smaller, and the manager actually took Darnell's resume, glancing over it with raised eyebrows. "Wexler Automotive, lead diagnostician," he whistled low. "That's impressive, so why'd you leave?" Darnell hesitated. "There were Ethical concerns about safety protocols. The manager handed the resume back. The whistleblower, he said, recognition dawning. Sorry, man, we don't need that kind of attention. By the time Darnell reached the third shop, his hope was fading. The manager, a heavyset man named Frank, actually laughed when Darnell presented his resume. A resume? For an oil change gig? Frank chuckled, waving the paper away. This ain't corporate America, buddy. Besides, we're overstaffed as it is. Walking home, Darnell stopped at a convenience store, counting out coins for a can of beans and a small box of cornbread mix, tonight's dinner. The clerk, a teenager with bored eyes, didn't look up as she pushed his change across the counter. Back at the trailer, Darnell pulled an old shoebox from under his bed and opened it carefully. Inside was a yellowed newspaper clipping with the headline, Local Mechanic Exposes Faulty Brake System, Wexler Automotive Under Investigation. His own younger face stared back from the photo, determined and righteous. Below it, a smaller headline read, Recalls issued following whistleblower report. He'd been right. The braking system was faulty. People would have died. But being right hadn't paid the bills or kept his career intact. Being right had blacklisted him from every major auto shop in 3 counties. That evening, as the beans simmered on the hot plate, Darnell watched Maya do her homework at their small folding table. He added the cornbread mix to a pan and placed it in their temperamental toaster oven. Your mom once tried to make cornbread from scratch, he said, the memory bringing a genuine smile. She forgot the baking powder and it came out flat as a pancake. She was so mad she threw it outside and the Johnsons' dog wouldn't even eat it. Maya's laughter filled the small space, bright and genuine. Was Mom a bad cook? The worst, Darnell said fondly. But she could fix any engine ever made, just like her daughter will someday. Maya's laughter faded, her eyes suddenly serious. Dad, will we always live here, in this trailer? Darnell's throat tightened. He wanted to promise her the world. A house with her own room, new shoes without tape, a yard to play in. Instead, he stirred the beans and said nothing. On his way home from the local parts yard the next day, where he'd scavenged for usable components to repair their ancient water heater, Darnell stopped at a small, well-kept mobile home at the edge of the park. He knocked 3 times, their signal. Mr. Earl Wilson, 78 years old with skin like weathered leather, opened the door with a shotgun resting casually against his leg. It's just me, Mr. Earl, Darnell said, accustomed to the old man's caution. I know who it is, Mr. Earl growled, setting the gun aside. These old eyes still work. Come in before you let all my heat out. Earl's home was meticulously organized, every surface clean, military precision evident in the perfectly folded blanket on the couch. Photographs of a younger Earl in Army uniform hung on the walls alongside medals in display cases. Water heater. Acting up again? Earl asked, offering Darnell a cup of coffee. Yes, sir. Thermocouple shot. Earl nodded thoughtfully. Got a socket wrench you can borrow. Might have a thermocouple in my shed, too. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sipping coffee. Earl had been the first to welcome them when they moved to Pinewood Heights 3 years ago. The old veteran didn't offer pity, just practical help and occasional wisdom. How's the job hunt? Earl finally asked. Still looking, Darnell admitted. Earl snorted. Their loss. Never saw nobody with hands like yours. You keep fixing the world, D. It'll come back around. Walking home with Earl's socket wrench, Darnell wondered if the old man was right. If anything could come back around from the mess his life had become. At home, Maya was hunched over her desk, carefully drawing what looked like a futuristic car. She quickly covered it when Darnell entered. What's that, baby girl? He asked. Nothing, she said, then reconsidered. Just a picture, for school. Later, when Maya was asleep, Darnell found the drawing tucked in a folder labeled Hope. The car was sleek, impossibly advanced, with Johnson Motors written across the side. Underneath, Maya had written, When I grow up, I want to fix engines like Daddy. Darnell's eyes burned as he carefully put the drawing back where he'd found it. That night, dark clouds rolled in from the west, bringing with them a storm that shook the thin walls of their trailer. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Darnell fumbled for the flashlight they kept by the door. "It's okay, Maya," he called. "Just a storm. I need to secure the tarp on the roof." Outside, rain lashed his face as he climbed the short ladder to their roof, where a blue tarp covered a section damaged in the last major storm. The wind fought him as he hammered down loose corners. "Cursed life," he muttered to himself. Rain, streaming down his face. Everything broken. Everything always broken. Then, cutting through the howl of the wind and the drumming of rain on metal, he heard it. A car horn, faint but persistent, coming from the direction of the woods that bordered the trailer park. Darnell hesitated, soaked to the skin and bone-tired. It wasn't his problem. He had enough problems of his own. But the horn sounded again, more desperate this time. Following the sound, Darnell made his way through the woods, flashlight beam bouncing off wet tree trunks and undergrowth. Finally, he emerged onto a seldom-used access road where a high-end SUV sat tilted at an awkward angle, one wheel trapped in a ditch. The headlights were on, illuminating the sheeting rain. A woman sat inside, her face visible through the driver's window, white, mid-30s, wearing what had once been an expensive business suit, now soaked and mud-splattered. When she saw Darnell approaching with his flashlight, her eyes widened in fear. She locked the doors with an audible click. Darnell stopped several feet away, aware of how he must look. A large black man, soaked and approaching a stranded white woman in the middle of nowhere. He raised his empty hand in a calming gesture. "Ma'am, you need help?" he called over the storm. The woman hesitated, then cracked her window an inch. "My car. I was trying to take a shortcut. The GPS said this was a road, but—" Her voice shook with cold and fear. "It's an old logging road," Darnell explained. "Not maintained anymore." He moved closer, careful to keep his movements slow and non-threatening. "Engine still running okay?" She nodded. "Yes, but it's stuck. I tried to call for help, but there's no signal out here." "I'm Darnell," he said. "I live in the trailer park just through those woods. I can take a look if you want." The woman studied him for a long moment, fear slowly giving way to desperate trust. Finally, she popped the hood. Darnell placed the flashlight in his mouth and bent over the engine compartment. The luxury SUV was immaculate, barely a year old. But as he examined it more closely, he spotted the problem: a cracked vacuum line and a loose connection to the ECU. From his pocket, he pulled a small toolkit he always carried: basic wrenches, electrical tape, zip ties, the essential tools of his trade. With practiced movements, he repaired the vacuum line and secured the connection. "Try it now," he called to the woman. She turned the key, and the engine roared to life, smoother than before. Wiping his hands on his already soaked pants, Darnell circled to her window. "You should be able to back out slowly now. The traction control was compromised by that loose connection." The woman stared at him in amazement. "How did you... I mean, you just... with just those little tools?" Darnell shrugged. "Engines talk to me. Always have." "Who are you?" she asked, genuine curiosity replacing fear. Darnell thought about all the answers he could give. Former lead diagnostician, whistleblower, disgraced mechanic, struggling father. Instead, he simply said, "Someone trying to get home." He guided her car out of the ditch, declining her offer of payment. As she drove away, he thought it was the end of their strange encounter. He was wrong. "Dad! Dad, wake up! There's people outside!" Maya's urgent voice cut through Darnell's exhausted sleep. He blinked, momentarily disoriented, then registered the panic in his daughter's voice. "What people, baby?" he asked, instantly alert. "Big black cars. Lots of them. Like in the movies when the government comes!" Darnell rushed to the window and felt his heart skip. A convoy of 12 sleek black SUVs, identical to the one he'd helped the night before but in perfect condition, lined the narrow dirt road leading to their trailer. Men in dark suits stood beside several of the vehicles. One was speaking into a radio. "Stay inside, Maya," Darnell said, his mind racing. Through the thin walls of their trailer, he could hear neighbors emerging from their homes. Mrs. Turner stood on her porch in a bathrobe, mouth open in shock. Jackson Miller was filming the scene with his phone. Even Mr. Earl had appeared, standing at the edge of his property with his arms crossed, watching intently. Taking a deep breath, Darnell opened the door and stepped outside. Maya, ignoring his instructions, followed close behind him, clutching the back of his shirt. One of the suited men approached, his posture professional but not threatening. "Mr. Johnson? Darnell Johnson?" "That's me," Darnell answered cautiously. "Sir, we're not here to cause trouble," the man said, noticing Maya half hiding behind her father. He smiled at her reassuringly. "Miss Wexler asked us to bring you something." "Miss Wexler?" Darnell repeated, confusion evident in his voice. The rear door of the lead SUV opened, and the woman from last night emerged. Gone was the disheveled, rain-soaked figure. Today she wore an impeccably tailored pantsuit, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She walked toward them with confident strides, stopping a respectful distance away. "Mr. Johnson," she said with a warm smile, "I had to track you down. You walked away before I could say thank you properly." "You're Catherine Wexler?" Darnell asked, recognition dawning. "As in?" "Wexler Automotive, yes," she confirmed, "among other subsidiaries." Darnell instinctively took a step back, pulling Maya with him. The Wexler name brought back a flood of bitter memories. The whistleblowing, the legal battles, the blacklisting. Catherine noticed his reaction. "Please, I'm not here about the past. May we talk? Privately?" Against his better judgment, Darnell found himself following Catherine to her SUV. Maya clung to his hand, wide-eyed and silent. Inside the vehicle, the leather seats and climate-controlled interior felt like another world compared to their drafty trailer. Catherine pressed a button, and a privacy screen rose between them and the driver. "What you did last night was remarkable," she began. "That engine has a proprietary system. Most certified mechanics wouldn't have diagnosed it so quickly, let alone fixed it with, was that electrical tape?" "And a paperclip," Darnell admitted, despite himself. Catherine reached into a sleek briefcase and pulled out a formal envelope. "This is an invitation, Mr. Johnson. A consulting opportunity at Wexler Tech, our technology subsidiary in Atlanta. 3 months, excellent compensation." She named a figure that made Darnell's breath catch. "Housing included, of course. For both of you." Darnell stared at the envelope but didn't take it. "Why me? You have engineers with degrees from MIT." "Engineers who couldn't figure out what you did in 20 minutes with a flashlight in your mouth?" Catherine countered. "We don't usually recruit people without resumes, but your work spoke volumes." "Ms. Wexler, Catherine, please." "Catherine," Darnell corrected himself. "I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept. There's too much history there." "This isn't about history," Catherine insisted. "It's about the future. A prototype engine. Unlike anything on the market, and we're stuck." Darnell shook his head. "I don't want to leave Maya, and I don't want to get involved in rich people games." Catherine's expression softened as she looked at Maya, who was tracing patterns on the leather seat with one finger. "Just one meeting, Mr. Johnson, in Atlanta. One day, no strings. We'll fly you there and back." Before Darnell could respond, Maya spoke up. "Can I come too, on a plane?" Catherine smiled. "Of course, the jet has excellent snacks." Later that evening, after the convoy had departed and the neighbors had stopped staring, Darnell sat at their small table, staring at Catherine's business card. Maya was supposed to be getting ready for bed, but he could feel her watching him from the doorway of their tiny bathroom. "You should go, Dad," she said finally. "Maya, it's not that simple. You always fix broken things," she said, her voice small but determined. "Maybe this is how you fix us too." Unknown to them, at that very moment, Catherine Wexler was taking a call in her Atlanta penthouse office. "No, he hasn't committed yet," she said to the person on the other end. Her voice had lost its warmth, replaced by cool efficiency. "But I'm confident he will." She listened for a moment, then added, "No, he doesn't know yet. But we need him on this. If he says no again, we'll make him an offer he can't refuse." The next morning, Darnell visited Mr. Earl. The old veteran listened silently as Darnell explained the situation. "Don't trust big money types," Earl warned when Darnell had finished. "I worked government contracting for 30 years. Saw men like that use people up and spit 'em out." "It's just one meeting," Darnell said, though uncertainty colored his voice. Earl fixed him with a hard stare. "Nothing's ever just one meeting." He sighed heavily. "But maybe it's a door opening. Lord knows you deserve one." Despite his misgivings, Darnell agreed to go. 48 hours after Catherine's convoy had upended their quiet existence, he and Maya found themselves boarding a sleek private jet. Maya bounced excitedly in her seat, eyes wide as she took in the luxurious interior. Darnell sat tensely, hands clasped tightly in his lap. Catherine greeted them warmly, acting as their gracious host. But Darnell noticed how her eyes occasionally darted to her phone, how her smile sometimes seemed calculated rather than genuine. The flight to Atlanta took less than an hour. As they descended, Darnell got his first glimpse of the Wexler Tech facility. An enormous glass and steel complex surrounded by manicured grounds and a security perimeter that wouldn't have looked out of place at the Pentagon. "Impressive, isn't it?" Catherine said, noticing his expression. "The future of American innovation." They landed on a private airstrip and were transferred to yet another black SUV. Maya pressed her face against the window as they drove through security checkpoints and into an underground parking structure. "What about Maya?" Darnell asked as they approached an elevator. "We've arranged for her to tour our educational center," Catherine explained. "It's where employees' children attend, classes during the day. State of the art." Darnell hesitated, reluctant to be separated from his daughter. Maya squeezed his hand. "It's okay, Dad. I'll be fine." He watched her walk away with a friendly-looking woman in a Wexler Tech uniform, fighting the urge to call her back. Catherine led Darnell into an elevator that required both a keycard and a retinal scan. They ascended in silence, finally emerging into a stark white corridor. "Our R&D section," Catherine explained. "Very few people have clearance for this floor." They entered a conference room where 3 men and 2 women in lab coats waited. One stepped forward, extending his hand. "Dr. Alan Pierce," he introduced himself. "Lead engineer. We've heard a lot about you, Mr. Johnson." Darnell shook his hand cautiously. "What exactly am I doing here?" Dr. Pierce exchanged a glance with Catherine, who nodded slightly. He slid a complex schematic across the table toward Darnell. "We heard you fixed a blown ECU with wire and tape," Dr. Pierce said. "Let's see what you do with this." Darnell studied the schematic, immediately recognizing it as an advanced engine design. But something was off. The cooling system was inefficient. The fuel injection sequence flawed in a subtle but critical way. He looked up at the engineers, realizing this was a test. They were watching him intently, waiting to see if he would spot the deliberate flaws they had introduced. From the other side of a mirrored glass wall, Catherine Wexler observed, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully as Darnell began to circle the problems on the schematic. "This," she murmured to herself, "is exactly what we need." For 2 minutes, the conference room was silent, except for the soft scratch of Darnell's marker against the schematic paper. The engineers watched, expressions carefully neutral, as he methodically circled one flaw after another. His hands moved with certainty, making corrections in the margins with quick, precise strokes. Finally, Darnell looked up. "Your cooling system has 3 major flaws. The radiator configuration creates a bottleneck here." He tapped the paper, "leading to pressure buildup that'll cause catastrophic failure after about 40 hours of operation. Your fuel injection sequence is elegant but wasteful, burns 15% more fuel than necessary. And this wiring layout," he shook his head, "creates electromagnetic interference that'll corrupt your sensor data." Dr. Pierce's eyebrows shot up. He glanced at his colleagues, who looked equally stunned. "Those issues took our team 6 weeks to identify," a woman with steel gray hair said. "And you found them in 2 minutes?" Darnell rewrote a section of the coolant flow diagram. "I see patterns, always have. When something's wrong, it stands out." Behind the one-way glass, Catherine smiled tightly. She pressed an intercom button. "Bring him in." The door opened, and Catherine entered with 2 security guards. "Impressive work, Mr. Johnson. More than impressive, actually." Darnell slid the schematic back across the table. "What is this engine for? It's not for a car." The engineers exchanged glances. "It's a prototype hybrid," Dr. Pierce offered. "Very experimental." "A concept we're exploring," another added quickly. Darnell shook his head. "No. The torque ratio's all wrong for a passenger vehicle. The cooling system's designed for sustained high output. The material specifications suggest extreme operating conditions." He locked eyes with Catherine. "What is this actually for?" Catherine's smile didn't waver. "I promised you lunch, didn't I? We can discuss details over food." The cafeteria at Wexler Tech rivaled high-end restaurants, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured grounds. Darnell barely noticed the gourmet options on his plate, his mind still processing the engine schematic. "You didn't answer my question," he said as Catherine sat across from him. "That engine, it feels military." "Our company has many government contracts," Catherine replied smoothly. "Defense, transportation, energy. The engine you saw could have applications in any of those sectors." Before Darnell could press further, a woman approached their table. She wore a lab coat like the others, but something about her stance, slightly defensive, perpetually alert, set her apart. "Mr. Johnson, this is Elena Morales," Catherine introduced. "One of our best engineers," Elena nodded stiffly. "Ms. Wexler." Her eyes assessed Darnell with cool professionalism. "I hear you found our little Easter eggs in the schematic." "Easter eggs?" Darnell repeated. "The flaws. They were deliberate." Elena's tone suggested she wasn't entirely happy about it. "A test." 1. "You passed brilliantly," Catherine interjected. "Elena will show you some of our other projects while I check on your daughter." As Catherine walked away, Elena's professional mask slipped slightly. "So you're the miracle worker they've been buzzing about, the man who fixes things with paperclips." "Just doing what needed doing," Darnell said, uncomfortable with the characterization. Elena studied him for a moment, then leaned closer. "Those flaws you found? I've been flagging them for months. They don't listen to me either." Darnell's interest sharpened. "What do you mean?" Elena straightened as a security guard glanced their way. "Nothing. Follow me, I'll show you the testing lab." Meanwhile, Maya was having a very different experience. The educational center was like nothing she'd ever seen. Interactive displays, holographic science demonstrations, and classrooms filled with technology that made her school look like something from the last century. A teacher introduced her to a group of students, all wearing Wexler Tech uniforms. "Everyone, this is Maya Johnson. She'll be joining us today." Maya smiled shyly. "Hi." The initial excitement quickly faded as she realized the gulf between herself and these children. Their casual references to vacation homes and private tutors made her acutely aware of her worn clothes and taped shoes. During lunch, a girl named Ashley wrinkled her nose as Maya sat beside her. "What's that smell?" "Oh." Her eyes widened in mock realization. "It's trailer smell." The table erupted in giggles. Maya stared at her sandwich, her appetite gone. Back in the engineering wing, Darnell was growing increasingly uneasy. Every question he asked about the engine's purpose received a vague answer. Security personnel seemed to materialize whenever. Conversations ventured into specifics. By mid-afternoon, he'd made his decision. He found Catherine in a glass-walled office. "I appreciate the tour, but I can't take the job," he said without preamble. Catherine's smile vanished. "You haven't even heard our offer." "I don't need to. There's something off about this whole setup. About that engine." Catherine stood, her demeanor shifting subtly. "You're under contract, Mr. Johnson." Darnell frowned. "What contract?" "I haven't signed anything. The confidentiality agreement before entering our facility. It includes a clause about project completion once initiated." Her voice hardened. "This is bigger than you think. If you walk now, people get hurt." "Is that a threat?" "A reality." Catherine's eyes were cold now. "We've invested significantly in bringing you here. The board expects results." Before Darnell could respond, an alert sounded on Catherine's desk. She checked it, her expression darkening. Security breach at entrance 4. Excuse me. 10 minutes later, Darnell was shocked to see Mr. Earl being escorted into a meeting room by 2 guards. Mr. Earl, what are you doing here? The old veteran looked out of place in the sleek facility, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Couldn't let you walk into the lion's den alone, could I? He glanced meaningfully at the cameras in the corners. Got an old army buddy works security here. Called. In a favor. One of the guards spoke into his radio. Subject is contained, awaiting instructions. Mr. Earl leaned close to Darnell. Don't trust the paperwork. I saw what Wexler did in '99. They're never just building engines. What do you mean? What happened in '99? Mr. Earl's expression darkened. Overseas contracts. Weapon systems disguised as agricultural equipment. 3 villages wiped out before the truth came out. The guard's radio crackled. Escort the visitor out. Standard procedure. Mr. Earl gripped Darnell's arm. Watch yourself, son. These people play chess while the rest of us play checkers. As Mr. Earl was led away, Darnell's phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Storage room B, sub-level 2, 20 minutes. Come alone. Darnell found the storage room exactly 20 minutes later. Elena was waiting inside, nervously checking her watch. We don't have much time, she said, pulling a tablet from her lab coat. Security does sweeps every 30 minutes. What's going on? Darnell demanded. Elena activated the tablet, revealing a file labeled Restricted Mantis Protocol. I accessed this using Pierce's credentials. Look at the language, she pointed. The phrases highlighted in red, target acquisition AI, and deployment zones. Darnell's blood ran cold. The engines for a drone? Not just any drone, an autonomous vehicle designed for surveillance and other capabilities. Urban settings. Elena's voice dropped. Domestic deployment. They're building spy drones for American cities? Darnell felt sick. That's the sanitized version, Elena replied grimly. The engine you corrected today powers the platform. Without it, the whole system fails. A notification appeared on Darnell's phone, a text from Maya. Dad, there's a weird man outside school watching me. Teachers say they'll check, but he left. Darnell showed Elena the message, his heart racing. I need to go, now. They're letting you see this, Elena warned, gesturing around them. It's all controlled. Even me talking to you right now. They're probably allowing it to see how you'll react. My daughter may already be part of their leverage. Elena's eyes were sympathetic but hard. Be careful what you say to her. They're watching. When Darnell finally reunited with Maya, she seemed subdued. The ride back to the airport was tense, with Catherine making light conversation while Darnell's mind raced with possibilities. None of them good. As they boarded the private jet, Catherine handed Darnell an envelope. Your preliminary agreement. The salary we discussed plus relocation assistance. We need your answer by tomorrow. Back at the trailer park, Mr. Earl was waiting. It was nearly midnight, but the old man sat on his porch, shotgun across his knees. You made it back, he said, relief evident in his voice. Someone broke in, Darnell said, pointing to his trailer. Even from a distance, he could see the door hanging awkwardly on its hinges. Inside, the trailer had been methodically searched. Drawers emptied, mattresses overturned, papers scattered. They didn't bother hiding it, Mr. Earl observed. That's intimidation, sending a message. Maya hugged herself, eyes wide with fear. Dad, what's happening? Darnell knelt before her. We're going to be okay, baby girl, I promise. But as he spoke, he wasn't sure he believed it himself. After Maya finally fell asleep, Darnell sat at the kitchen table, staring at an old photo of Maya's mother, Angela. Her smile, so like Maya's, seemed to ask what he was going to do now. I won't let them use me, he whispered to the photograph. Or my daughter. He pulled out his phone and called the number Elena had slipped him before they left. We dig, he said when she answered. Whatever Mantis really is, whatever they're planning, We find it all. The R&D archives were silent at 2 a.m., illuminated only by the soft blue glow of emergency lighting. Darnell moved cautiously down the corridor, following Elena's lead. The stolen access card she'd provided had gotten them past 2 security checkpoints already. "How much time do we have?" Darnell whispered. 20 minutes before the next guard rotation, Elena replied, her voice barely audible. "The cameras are on a loop, but it won't fool them for long." They reached a heavy door marked, "Project Archives, Authorized Personnel Only." Elena swiped the card, and the lock disengaged with a soft click. Inside, rows of secure servers hummed. Quietly, Elena moved to a terminal and began typing rapidly. "Look for anything labeled Mantis or M-Series," she instructed, her eyes never leaving the screen. Darnell searched through digital files, his heart racing each time a distant sound echoed through the facility. Finally, he found something, a folder titled Project Mantis Urban Integration. "Elena, here." She joined him, quickly bypassing another security prompt. The folder contained schematics, not just for the engine Darnell had corrected, but for an entire vehicle system. The design was unmistakably militaristic: armored exterior, multiple sensor arrays, weapons mounting points carefully labeled as surveillance equipment. "Urban deployment of autonomous surveillance vehicles," Elena read from one document. "Jesus! This isn't just surveillance," Darnell said, pointing to power allocation diagrams. "The energy distribution is all wrong for just cameras and sensors. There's enough juice here to power." He trailed off, the implications sinking in. Crowdy so. "Control systems," Elena finished grimly. "Or worse." Darnell downloaded files onto a secure drive while Elena kept watch. The weight of what they were uncovering pressed on him like a physical force. Across town, in a sleek high-rise, Catherine Wexler sat at a conference table surrounded by government officials in dark suits. Satellite images of urban centers were projected on the wall behind her. Phase 1 implementation could begin within 6 months, she was saying. The Johnson modifications solved our stability issues. "And if he walks?" a gray-haired man asked. Catherine's expression hardened. "If he walks, we lose the only mind that cracked the coolant instability. We need him locked in, permanently. By any means necessary?" Catherine hesitated only briefly. "Any means short of direct force. His daughter provides sufficient leverage." Back in the server room, Darnell and Elena had found a secure area requiring additional access. Elena worked frantically to bypass it. "I got into cybersecurity before engineering," she explained as her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Wexler recruited me from a defense contractor." "You worked in defense?" Darnell asked, surprised. Elena's expression darkened. "I designed drone guidance systems. Then one of my drones was used in an operation that killed 37 civilians. The company called it collateral damage. I called it murder." "So you left?" "I left thinking Wexler was different." Her laugh was bitter. "Turns out this isn't research, it's retribution. The drones I fought against are exactly what they're building now, just for domestic use instead." The lock finally released. Inside, they found older files, hard copy documents dating back several years. "My God," Elena breathed, holding up a folder. "They've been planning this for a decade. Mantis was originally conceived for overseas deployment, but after the whistleblower scandal—" "What whistleblower scandal?" Darnell asked. Elena looked at him strangely. "Yours. After you exposed the brake defects, Wexler lost military contracts worth billions. This," she gestured to the Mantis files, "is their comeback, and they specifically targeted you to help build it." Darnell felt the floor tilt beneath him. "That doesn't make sense. Why recruit someone who exposed them?" Elena pulled another file. "Because according to this, you were right about the defects but wrong about the cause. It wasn't negligence, it was sabotage, by a competitor. Wexler took the fall, but they've spent years building a case." She paused. "And tracking you." Darnell's chest tightened. "What are you saying?" Elena met his eyes reluctantly. "Darnell, there's more. These files show they've been monitoring you for years. Your job rejections, your financial struggles, they Weren't just bad luck. They blacklisted me. Worse, they engineered your downfall. Elena hesitated. And there's something about an accident. Something about Maya's mother. Before Darnell could process this, an alarm blared through the building. Their time had run out. That night, Darnell dreamed of Maya running through empty streets, pursued by a mechanical monster bearing his engine design. He woke gasping, sheets soaked with sweat, the image of his daughter's terror still fresh in his mind. The next morning, Catherine arrived at his trailer unannounced. Her smile was gone, replaced by cold professionalism. Breaking into secure areas. Mr. Johnson? Stealing company property? That's a serious offense. Darnell matched her stare. Building surveillance drones for American cities? That seems pretty serious too. You misunderstand the technology. Mantis isn't a weapon. It's a platform for maintaining order, for protecting citizens. From what? From whatever threatens them. Catherine stepped closer. You're looking at this all wrong. This technology will exist with or without you. If we don't build it, someone worse will. So I'm supposed to help you make it safer? Darnell asked incredulously. Catherine's expression softened slightly. Exactly. You have a chance to make it unstoppable, or to build in limitations, protections, or to make it unstoppable, Darnell countered. Their standoff was interrupted by Maya bursting into the trailer, her face pale. Dad. The man was back. At school. The one watching me. Darnell pulled Maya close, his eyes never leaving Catherine's. How far are you willing to go? He asked softly. Threatening a child? For a moment, Catherine looked genuinely confused. Then understanding dawned in her eyes. That wasn't us. You expect me to believe that? Believe what you want. But there are other interested parties in this project. Catherine reached for the door. You have 24 hours to decide, Mr. Johnson. After that, things get complicated for everyone. After she left, Darnell called Mr. Earl. I need you to take Maya somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't look. I know a place, the old man said without hesitation. My sister's farm in Tennessee. No electronics, no trail. As they packed a small bag for Maya, Darnell noticed a blinking light on his laptop, a new email from an unfamiliar address. The message contained only a link to a secure chat. Hey, a message appeared when he clicked it. I'm Jonas. I work in the server room at Wexler. I've been following your access logs. Darnell froze. Was this another trap? Don't worry, Jonas continued. I'm not reporting you. I've been watching Mantis development for months. What they're doing isn't right. Why should I trust you? Darnell typed back. Because I can give you access to the encrypted drives where the real plans are stored. The ones even Catherine doesn't have clearance for. That evening, while Maya was safely hidden with Mr. Earl, Darnell met Jonas, a skinny 20-something with nervous eyes and a Wexler Tech ID badge, in a coffee shop miles from the facility. I'm technically an intern, Jonas explained. Network, administration, nobody notices me, which means I notice everything. He slid a drive across the table. This will let you access the executive servers remotely, but be careful, it'll leave traces, and they'll know it was you. Why are you helping me? Jonas stared into his coffee. My brother's a cop in Detroit, the kind who believes in protecting people, not controlling them. What Wexler's building, it would change everything about how cities are policed. Not for the better. Armed with Jonas's drive, Darnell and Elena spent hours extracting data from Wexler's most secure servers. What they found confirmed their worst fears, and revealed new ones. Mantis wasn't just for surveillance. Internal memos described crowd dispersion capabilities and non-lethal compliance measures. One document outlined deployment scenarios for civil unrest events and urban containment protocols. But the most damning evidence came in the form of emails between Catherine and the board, discussing the neutralization of obstacles, including detailed profiles of potential whistleblowers. Within the company, we need to get this out, Darnell said. All of it. Elena nodded grimly. I have contacts in the tech press, but Wexler's lawyers would bury the story before it ran. Then we go bigger. Government oversight, public exposure. As they worked to compile the evidence, neither noticed the small anomaly in the system. Silent alert triggered by their activities, routing directly to Wexler security. The trap was sprung the next morning. Darnell arrived at Elena's apartment to find the door ajar, the interior ransacked. Elena sat at her kitchen table, a security officer on either side of her. Catherine stood by the window. "Mr. Johnson," she said without turning. "I'm disappointed." More. Security personnel appeared behind Darnell. One held up an evidence bag containing the drive Jonas had given him. "Corporate espionage," Catherine continued. "Theft of classified materials. Conspiracy to reveal trade secrets." She finally faced him. "That's enough for a decade in prison. For both of you." Darnell met her gaze steadily. "And what you're building? The drones, the surveillance network, the compliance measures? What's the sentence for that?" "Progress always frightens people at first," Catherine replied. "You had talent, and you wasted it on fear." Darnell and Elena were escorted to separate vehicles. Through the window of his SUV, Darnell saw Jonas being led out of another building in handcuffs, his young face ashen with terror. At the police station, Darnell was held in an interrogation room for hours. No one questioned him. They simply left, him to stew. Finally, the door opened to reveal not Catherine or a detective, but a well-dressed older woman he'd never seen before. "Mr. Johnson," she said, sitting across from him. "My name is Margaret Franklin. I represent a consortium of concerned parties." "Lawyers?" Darnell guessed. "Among others, several of whom owe favors to a man named Earl Wilson." She opened a briefcase. "The charges against you have been temporarily suspended, pending review of certain irregularities in the warrant process." Darnell could scarcely believe what he was hearing. "Mr. Earl did this? Mr. Wilson has friends in unexpected places." She slid a document across the table. "You'll be released, but with conditions. No contact with Wexler personnel. No public statements about the company or its projects. And if I don't agree, then even I can't help you." Her expression softened slightly. "Sometimes, Mr. Johnson, the wiser course is a strategic retreat." Darnell signed the agreement. 2 hours later, he walked out of the station to find Elena waiting, her face drawn but determined. "They made you sign something too?" he asked. She nodded. "Gag order. But they don't know what we already sent out." "What do you mean?" Elena glanced around before, whispering, "Before they caught us, I'd already backed up everything to an off-site server. It's all there. The Mantis specs, the emails, everything." A battered pickup truck pulled up beside them. Mr. Earl was at the wheel, with Maya in the passenger seat. "Get in," the old man ordered. "We need to move." As they drove away from the city, Darnell looked back at the Wexler building gleaming in the distance. For a moment, he thought he saw Catherine watching from a high window, her silhouette small and somehow lonely against the vast corporate backdrop. "Where are we going?" he asked Mr. Earl. "Somewhere they won't look," the old veteran replied. "Somewhere we can figure out our next move, because this ain't over, son. Not by a long shot." Maya reached over and took her father's hand. Her eyes, so like her mother's, held a mixture of fear and determination that broke his heart and strengthened his resolve in equal measure. "We'll be okay, Dad," she said with a certainty beyond her years. "You always fix things. You'll fix this, too." Darnell squeezed her hand, wishing he shared her confidence. Ahead of them, the highway stretched into uncertainty, while behind them, the machinery of power they'd challenged continued its relentless advance. The truck's headlights cut through the pre-dawn darkness as Darnell guided the vehicle along forgotten back roads. They'd been driving for nearly 6 hours, avoiding highways and towns, stopping only when absolutely necessary. In the passenger seat, Elena studied a dog-eared map by flashlight, while Maya slept in the back, her head resting against Mr. Earl's shoulder. "Take the next right," Elena said quietly. "About 3 miles down, there should be a turnoff for an unmarked dirt road." Darnell glanced in the rearview mirror for the 100th time. "Any sign of pursuit?" "Nothing yet," Mr. Earl responded, his weathered face illuminated briefly by passing headlights. "But Wexler's people are thorough. They won't give up easily. The borrowed pickup." Mr. Earl had been deliberately vague about where he'd acquired it, rattled over the uneven terrain as they followed the dirt road deeper into the Appalachian foothills. The mantis blueprints and other evidence they'd gathered were hidden inside Maya's lunchbox, tucked beneath coloring books and granola bars. There, Elena pointed ahead to a barely visible structure nestled among the trees. The cabin was small and weather-beaten, with a sagging front porch and boarded windows. It looked abandoned, which was precisely the point. My brother's hunting cabin, Mr. Earl explained as they approached. He passed 5 years ago. Nobody's used it since. No electricity, no phone lines, no cell signal within 10 miles. Clean air for thinking, Darnell murmured, taking in the isolation. Inside the cabin was surprisingly solid, dusty but intact. A wood stove dominated the main room, with simple furnishings scattered about. Maya explored wide-eyed, treating the primitive accommodations like an adventure rather than a necessity. "It's like camping, Dad," she exclaimed, bouncing on a creaky cot. Darnell managed a smile, grateful for his daughter's resilience. "Just like camping, baby girl. Just for a little while." As they settled in, Darnell and Elena established a routine. Mornings were spent reviewing the mantis documents, looking for vulnerabilities or legal violations they could exploit. Afternoons often found them outside, where Darnell had begun teaching Maya basic mechanical skills, not just to occupy her, but as practical knowledge for their uncertain future. "This is called a socket wrench," Darnell explained one day, demonstrating. "On the pickup's engine. It lets you work in tight spaces." Maya absorbed everything eagerly, her small hands quickly growing confident with the tools. Elena joined these sessions, contributing her engineering knowledge. Together, they covered everything from basic repairs to improvised filtration systems. "See how the water passes through these layers?" Elena showed Maya one afternoon, using an old bucket, charcoal, sand, and cloth to build a simple water filter. First, it removes the big particles, then the smaller ones. Maya's face lit with understanding. "Like how the engine filters work, but for water instead of fuel." "Exactly," Elena smiled, impressed. "You've got your father's mind for patterns." At night, when Maya was asleep, the adults would strategize in hushed tones around the cabin's scarred wooden table. "The problem isn't just exposing mantis," Elena explained one evening. "It's proving Wexler's intent. The technology itself isn't illegal. It's how they plan to use it." "And who they plan to use it against," Mr. Earl added grimly. During these weeks of hiding, Maya had started keeping a journal, a composition notebook titled How We Disappeared. Its pages filled quickly with her observations, sketches of mechanical parts they'd explained to her, and codes they'd taught her for emergency communications. "If we get separated," Darnell had told her, "look for messages like this." He demonstrated a simple pattern of seemingly random numbers that actually contained coordinates and meeting times. Maya took to the codes with surprising aptitude, soon creating variations of her own. "It's like a puzzle, Dad," she explained, "and I'm good at puzzles." Meanwhile, back in Atlanta, Jonas was enduring daily interrogations. Despite his fear, he maintained that he'd acted alone in helping Darnell, protecting both Darnell and Elena from further charges. "I just thought he deserved to know what he was building," Jonas repeated, his story consistent despite threats and promises. Secretly, during brief moments alone, Jonas copied the same blueprints Darnell had taken and stored them in an encrypted cloud account, a backup plan he kept even from Darnell. In her penthouse office, Catherine Wexler was facing her own interrogations. The CEO of Wexler Industries, Harrison Porter, paced before the floor-to-ceiling windows, his reflection distorted by the city lights below. 3 weeks, Porter said, his voice dangerously quiet. 3 weeks, and your pet mechanic is still in the wind with our most sensitive materials. "We'll find him," Catherine insisted, maintaining her composure despite the pressure. "The surveillance grid has been expanded to 3 additional states. It's only a matter of time." "Time we don't have." Porter stopped pacing to face her directly. "The Defense Department is getting nervous. Our investors are asking questions. If you can't bring him back, don't bother coming back at all." Alone later that night, Catherine stared at a photograph on her desk. herself as a young girl standing beside her father, the company's founder, both smiling before the original Wexler factory. She remembered his words. "We build things that last, Kathy. Things that matter." She wondered what he would think of Mantis, of using their family legacy to create machines of control rather than progress. But such doubts couldn't matter now. She'd come too far, compromised too much. Back at the cabin, the days blended together until one morning when Maya's small transistor radio, a gift from Mr. Earl to keep her entertained, emitted a strange pattern of static during her favorite music program. Darnell recognized it immediately as an embedded audio message, a technique he'd once learned from Mr. Earl. Isolating the waveform using Elena's laptop, they discovered a message from Jonas. They found the cabin. "You have 48 hours. Run." "How could they know?" Elena asked, panic rising in her voice. Mr. Earl's expression darkened. "The radio. It's been receiving fine, which means—" "Signal triangulation," Darnell finished. "They've been tracking broadcast, receivers in remote areas. They packed quickly, taking only essentials." Darnell worked through the night, rigging simple but effective traps around the cabin. Nothing lethal, just delays to buy them time. Tripwires connected to falling branches, pressure plates that would trigger loud noisemakers, a frying pan, suspended from the ceiling by string that would swing down if a certain door was opened. "Remember what I taught you," he told Maya as they prepared to leave. "Keep low, move quiet. Stay with Elena if we get separated." Maya nodded, fear and determination warring in her young face. "I remember, Dad." They slipped away before dawn, leaving the cabin to serve as a decoy. Only hours later, a tactical team converged on the structure, finding nothing but empty rooms and Darnell's improvised traps. The frying pan caught one agent squarely in the forehead, leaving him with a concussion, and his team with a humiliating report to file. The group had split up temporarily, Mr. Earl taking Maya along a safer route, while Darnell and Elena created a more obvious trail to draw pursuit. They would rendezvous at a predetermined location miles away. The plan worked, but not without cost. As they navigated a steep ravine, Elena slipped on loose shale. Darnell caught her before she fell completely, but not before a sharp rock edge sliced deeply into her side. The wound wasn't life-threatening, but it bled profusely and would need proper medical attention. "I'm fine," Elena insisted through gritted teeth as Darnell applied pressure with his shirt. "You're not fine," he countered. "We need help." Finding that help meant another risk. Mr. Earl directed them to a nondescript RV parked on the outskirts of a small town, a mobile medical clinic run by Dr. Sarah Linwood, a former Army medic who owed Mr. Earl for saving her brother in desert. "Storm, clean entry and exit," Dr. Linwood commented as she examined Elena's wound. "You're lucky. Half an inch deeper and we'd be having a different conversation." "How long until she can travel?" Darnell asked. "A few days at least," the doctor replied, "unless you want her passing out from blood loss." This forced delay gave them time to consider their next move. Gathered around a map in the back of the RV, they debated options. "We could reach out to my contacts in the tech press," Elena suggested, her voice weak but determined. "Wexler's lawyers would bury it," Darnell countered. "We need something bigger, something they can't control." "Washington," Mr. Earl said suddenly. "Take it straight to the oversight committees, public hearings. Make it too big to hide." Elena's expression was skeptical. "They'll kill us before we make it to any hearing." Darnell looked from Elena to Mr. Earl, then to the sleeping form of Maya in the RV's small bed. Everything, their safety, their future, perhaps even the future of surveillance in American cities, hinged on what they did next. "Then they better not miss," he said finally. "Because we're going to Washington, not to make a deal, but to tell the truth. All of it." Dawn broke over the Maryland countryside as their borrowed car approached the outskirts of Washington, D.C. For 3 days, they had traveled in tense silence, using cash only, switching vehicles twice to avoid detection. Elena's wound had been stabilized but still pained her with every movement. Maya had been uncharacteristically quiet, the gravity of their situation finally eroding her youthful optimism. "How do we even start?" Elena asked as the Washington Monument appeared on the horizon. "We can't just walk into a congressional office with stolen corporate documents. We start with people who specialize in exposing secrets," Darnell replied. From his pocket, he produced a crumpled business card Mr. Earl had given him, the contact information for a journalist named Rebecca Winters. According to Mr. Earl, Winters was part of a secretive network of journalists, former intelligence agents, and civil liberties attorneys dedicated to exposing government overreach. They operated from unmarked offices and used encrypted communications, their very existence known only to those who needed their help desperately enough to seek them out. "She'll want proof," Mr. Earl had warned. "Hard evidence, not just your word against Wexler's." They made contact using a secure messaging app downloaded onto a burner phone. The response was immediate but cautious. "Verification required." "Proof of claims," Elena typed back. "Mantis surveillance drones, urban deployment, Wexler Industries." After a tense silence, new instructions appeared. "Abandoned Washington Press Building, basement level, 2 p.m., come alone." "It's a trap, Mr. Earl stated flatly when shown the message. "Maybe," Darnell conceded, "but we're running out of options." They compromised. Darnell would go to the meeting while Elena stayed with Maya and Mr. Earl at a safe distance, ready to publish everything online if he didn't return within 3 hours. The Washington Press Building had once been the hub of the city's newspaper industry. Now it stood derelict, windows boarded, graffiti decorating its lower levels. Darnell slipped inside through a service entrance, finding his way to the basement as instructed. The vast underground space was dimly lit by emergency lights that had somehow remained operational, despite the building's abandonment. Printing presses loomed like industrial dinosaurs in the shadows. "Mr. Johnson." Darnell turned to find a woman emerging from behind one of the machines. Rebecca Winters was younger than he'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes that missed. "Nothing. You're taking an enormous risk coming here," she said without preamble. "Not as enormous as letting Mantis go operational," Darnell replied. Winters smiled thinly. "Prove it exists." Darnell produced a flash drive, one of several copies they'd made. "Everything's here. Schematics, deployment plans, internal communications, including references to crowd control capabilities. If this is legitimate, it could trigger congressional hearings," Winters said, examining the drive. "But we need more than digital files. Those can be altered, discredited." "What do you need?" "Testimony. On record. Your face, your voice, telling your story." Darnell hesitated. Going public would make him and Maya targets forever, not just fugitives, but symbols. "I need time to think," he said finally. Winters nodded. 24 hours. After that, we move forward with or without you. This is bigger than one person, Mr. Johnson. Even bigger than your daughter." Back at their temporary safe house, a motel room paid for in cash on the outskirts of the city, Darnell shared Winters' requirements. "She's right," Elena said quietly. "Files can be dismissed as forgeries. We need someone to stand up and be counted." "That someone doesn't have to be you," Mr. Earl pointed out. "Elena could do it, or I could." "No," Darnell shook his head. "This started with me, with my engine." He looked at Maya, who was pretending not to listen. "But I won't decide anything without considering what it means for all of us." That night, as the others slept, Darnell and Elena worked to upload their evidence to an encrypted server Winters had provided. The process was agonizingly slow, the connection deliberately throttled to avoid detection. 29%, Elena reported, watching the progress bar inch forward. "At this rate, it'll take hours." A soft ping from Elena's laptop interrupted them, an alert from one of the security programs she'd installed. "Someone's searching for our device signature," she whispered urgently. "They're close." Darnell peered through the motel room blinds to see 2 black SUVs pulling into the parking lot. Men in tactical gear emerged, moving with practiced efficiency toward the motel office. "Wake the others," Darnell ordered. "We need to move, now." They escaped through a bathroom window moments before their door was breached. Moving in the shadows between buildings, they made it to their car, just as shouts erupted behind them. "The upload," Elena said desperately. "It's not complete." "We'll find another way," Darnell promised as they sped away, tires screeching. The pursuit that followed was relentless. Wexler's security team had anticipated their escape routes, blocking side streets and coordinating with local police using some pretext about dangerous fugitives. Downtown Washington offered their best chance: crowds, buildings, the chaos of a city that could swallow them if they moved quickly enough. Abandoning their car in a parking garage, they continued on foot, Maya between them, Mr. Earl bringing up the rear despite his protest that he was slowing them down. "There," Elena pointed to a construction site, a half-completed office building with a tower crane looming overhead. "We can lose them in there." The site was a maze of concrete pillars, stacked materials, and machinery. They wove through it, climbing higher as their pursuers spread out below. Eventually, they found themselves trapped on the unfinished 20th floor, the only exit blocked by approaching security personnel. "The crane," Darnell said, pointing to where the tower crane's arm extended toward the adjacent building. "We can cross to the next roof." It was insane. A narrow metal beam suspended hundreds of feet above the street. But the alternative was capture. "I can't," Elena whispered, her face pale as she looked at the drop. "My side. I wouldn't make it." "I'll create a diversion," Mr. Earl volunteered. "Draw them away." "No," Darnell was firm. "We stay together." He turned to Maya, whose eyes were wide with fear. "Baby girl, I need you to be brave now. Braver than you've ever been." Maya swallowed, hard but nodded. "Like the balance beam at school, right, Dad?" "Just like that. I'll be right behind you." With Elena supporting Mr. Earl, Darnell guided Maya onto the beam. The 9-year-old moved with surprising steadiness, her small body tense but controlled, as she inched across the gulf between buildings. Darnell followed, his heart in his throat, ready to catch her if she faltered. From a rooftop across the street, Catherine watched through binoculars as the small figure of Maya made her way across. The crane arm. A sniper beside her adjusted his scope, the crosshairs finding Darnell's back. "I have the shot," the sniper reported. Catherine stared through her binoculars, focusing not on Darnell but on Maya, a child balanced between terror and courage, trusting her father to keep her safe. Catherine remembered another child, her own daughter, lost to a drunk driver years ago. The memory still ached like an unhealed wound. "No kill order," she whispered, lowering the binoculars. "Track but do not engage." "Ma'am?" The sniper looked confused. "You heard me," Catherine's voice was steel. "Let them go." Maya reached the far building, collapsing into her father's arms as he made the final step across. Elena and Mr. Earl followed more slowly, but they too made it safely. For a moment, they allowed themselves to breathe, to believe they might have escaped. Then Maya surprised them all. Spotting an electronic billboard control panel on the maintenance level of the building they'd entered, she darted toward it, fingers flying, over the keyboard before Darnell could stop her. "Maya, what are you—" "Dad, remember the code you taught me?" Maya's face was alight with fierce determination. "The one for emergencies when people need to know something important?" On the massive digital billboard facing the city, the regular advertisement flickered, then changed to display a stark message. "They're building war machines, don't let them." Below it was a web address leading to the partially uploaded files. "How did you—" Darnell began, astonished. "You taught me the basics," Maya explained. "But Jonas showed me more. We've been practicing online." Around the city, people stopped to stare at the hijacked billboard. Phones came out. Pictures were taken. The message spread across social media platforms faster than any corporate team could contain it. Within hours, news outlets were reporting on the Mantis leak. The partial files, while incomplete, contained enough concrete evidence to spark congressional interest. Wexler stock plummeted as investors panicked. Catherine was summoned to testify under oath about the project's true purpose. 3 days later, as the media frenzy continued unabated, Darnell received an anonymous message directing him to an abandoned church in Georgetown. Against Elena's advice, he went alone. The church was silent, save for the occasional creak of ancient wood. Dust. Motes danced in the colored light filtering through stained glass windows. Catherine Wexler sat in the last pew, looking smaller somehow, shorn of her corporate armor. "You should know there's no recording devices," she said as Darnell approached. "No security, just me." "Why am I here?" Darnell remained standing, wary despite her apparent vulnerability. "You were always the better engineer," Catherine said after a moment. "I knew at the moment you fixed my car that night, but I had to survive, in the company, in the industry. I did what was necessary." "Necessary?" Darnell's voice hardened. "Building surveillance drones? Threatening my daughter? Was that necessary?" "I never threatened Maya," Catherine insisted. "That wasn't us. There are other players involved now, military contractors, foreign investors. The technology attracted attention we didn't anticipate." She reached into her jacket and produced a flash drive. "This contains audio recordings of board meetings discussing Mantis applications beyond what I was told, including domestic surveillance, capabilities I wasn't briefed on." Her hand trembled slightly as she held it out. "Then survive with this truth." As Darnell left the church with the drive, he didn't notice the figure watching from across the street, a man with a telephoto lens capturing the encounter. Meanwhile, Jonas had made his own decision. After being released from questioning due to lack of evidence, he contacted a major tech news outlet, agreeing to an on-camera interview. With his boyish face and earnest manner, he became the unexpected human face of the Wexler scandal. "I saw internal emails discussing how Mantis would be deployed in American cities," he explained to millions of viewers. "Not just for traffic, management, or emergency response, but for what they called population monitoring." That's when I knew I had to do something. Jonas played audio recordings he'd secretly made during meetings, executives discussing the monetization of urban data collection and the potential for behavioral modification through environmental control. The evidence was damning. Within days, federal agents raided Wexler headquarters. Top executives were arrested on charges ranging from corporate fraud to conspiracy. Catherine herself vanished from public view, her testimony sealed as part of an ongoing national security investigation. In a dusty bar in rural Virginia, Mr. Earl watched the news unfold on a small television mounted above the counter. He nursed a bourbon, a small smile playing at the corners of his weathered mouth as reporters detailed the fall of Wexler Industries. "You did good, son," he murmured, raising his glass in a silent toast to Darnell. The victory, however, proved short-lived. As Darnell, Elena, and Maya settled into a safe house provided by Winter's network, they discovered that not all threats had been neutralized. Black Sun Security, a private military contractor not officially connected to Wexler, but deeply involved in Mantis development, sent operatives to locate and eliminate the whistleblowers. Their motives weren't just revenge. They feared exposure of their own involvement in similar projects. The attack came at dusk. Precision, coordination, and inside knowledge, suggesting a betrayal somewhere in their support network. The safe houses, security systems were disabled seconds before armed men breached the perimeter. But this time, it was Maya who spotted the danger first. Playing near a window, she noticed a reflection in a puddle outside, a dark figure moving where no one should be dead. Her whispered warning gave them precious seconds to prepare. What followed was chaos, gunfire, breaking glass, Maya's frightened cries as Darnell pulled her to safety. Elena, still weakened from her injury, nevertheless fought alongside Darnell, their months together having forged them into a cohesive team. As they escaped through a hidden passage Winters had shown them, Darnell looked back to see Maya holding her own, using the mechanical skills and emergency protocols they'd taught her to help guide Mr. Earl to safety. In that moment, despite the danger and uncertainty surrounding them, Darnell felt a surge of pride so intense it almost overwhelmed him. His daughter was becoming something extraordinary, resilient, resourceful, unbroken by circumstances that would have shattered many adults. They emerged into the gathering darkness, fugitives once, more but united by a purpose greater than survival alone. The truth about Mantis was out there now, spreading beyond anyone's ability to contain it. Whatever came next, they would face it together. "What now, Dad?" Maya asked as they huddled in the back of a delivery van Winters had arranged for their extraction. Darnell looked at Elena, then at Mr. Earl, before meeting his daughter's questioning gaze. "Now we finish what we started, all the way." Morning sunlight filtered through dusty blinds, casting long shadows across the small apartments, worn floorboards. 3 months had passed since the Mantis revelations had rocked the corporate and political landscape. 3 months of living with constant vigilance, of scanning crowds for familiar faces, of Maya waking up screaming from nightmares she couldn't, or wouldn't, describe. Darnell stood at the window, carefully peering between the slats at the quiet street below. The safe house, arranged by Rebecca Winters' whistleblower network, was modest but secure. A third-floor walk-up in a neighborhood where people minded their own business. They had relocated twice since the attack on their previous hideout, each move carefully orchestrated to leave no trace. Behind him, Elena made coffee on a hot plate, moving gingerly to accommodate her still-healing wound. Though the physical injury was mending, the psychological trauma lingered. The closest call had come during their escape from the Black Sun operatives, when Maya had nearly been grabbed by a masked contractor. Darnell had reached her just in time, but the incident had left its mark on all of them. "Anything?" Elena asked, her voice low despite the early hour. Darnell shook his head, quiet, but that doesn't mean much these days. In the small bedroom they all shared, Maya slept restlessly, a wrench clutched in her small hand beneath her pillow. The tool had become her talisman, a source of comfort in a world that had become profoundly unsafe. She'd insisted on keeping it close after the attack, and neither Darnell nor Elena had the heart to refuse her. Mr. Earl had separated from them temporarily, using his network of contacts to establish new identities they would need if they ever hoped to stop running. His age made him less suspicious, more invisible to the forces hunting them. They received coded messages from him periodically, reassurance that he was still working on their behalf. The television murmured in the background, the morning news cycling through updates on the Mantis scandal. Congressional hearings had been convened. Wexler executives had resigned in disgrace. But the story was already fading from headlines, pushed aside by newer scandals, fresher outrage. "They're burying it," Elena said, nodding toward the TV. "Just like they always do." Darnell's phone buzzed, a secure device provided by Winters' network. The message was from Rebecca herself. "Need to meet. Usual place, noon, critical." The usual place was a small bookstore with a coffee shop in the back, chosen for its multiple exits and privacy. When Darnell arrived, Winters was already waiting, a stack of books providing casual cover for their conversation. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Someone sold access." Darnell's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "One of our journalists. He provided partial access to the Mantis files to a foreign investment group." Her expression was grim. "They're already rebuilding components of the system overseas. Different name, same purpose. How could that happen? I thought the files were secure." "Nothing's truly secure," Winters replied. "Not when there's enough money involved." She slid a tablet across the table, showing schematics nearly identical to what they'd exposed, but with subtle modifications. "They're calling it Sentinel. Different branding, same machine." Darnell studied the designs, anger building like pressure in a sealed chamber. "We didn't stop the machine," he said bitterly. "We just changed who's driving it." When he returned to the apartment, he found Elena and Maya huddled around a laptop, watching a bootlegged recording of a podcast interview that had been briefly published before being removed from all official platforms. The subject was Catherine Wexler. "I authorized development without fully understanding the implications." Catherine's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion. "The original concept was for disaster response, autonomous vehicles that could navigate damaged infrastructure. Somewhere along the line it became something else." "And you never questioned this evolution?" The interviewer pressed. "I questioned. I was overruled." She paused. That's not an excuse. It's just what happened. The interview continued, Catherine methodically exposing her own role in Wexler's crimes without seeking absolution. Near the end, she looked directly into the camera, her composure cracking slightly. If Darnell Johnson is watching this, I want him to know one thing. Protect your daughter. Maya is the only version of the future that doesn't scare me. The mention of Maya's name sent a chill through Darnell. Catherine had never spoken it publicly before. The message was clear. She knew they were watching and she was warning them. She's trying to help, Elena suggested. Or setting us up, Darnell countered. Either way, we need to move again. Before they could debate further, Maya emerged from the bedroom, rubbing sleep from her eyes. At 11, she looked older somehow, her childish softness hardened by months. On the run, her questions had grown more pointed, her observations sharper. They're building it again, aren't they? She asked, nodding toward the laptop. The engine. Darnell hesitated, then nodded. There seemed little point in shielding her from truth she'd inevitably discover. So we didn't really stop anything. Maya's voice held no surprise, only resignation. We slowed it down, Elena offered. Created public awareness, but it's still happening. Maya wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking very small. Then, unexpectedly, her expression shifted, determination replacing fear. What if we give it away? Give what away? Darnell asked. The engine. The real design. What if we make it open source, available to everyone? Maya's eyes lit with sudden inspiration. If everyone has it, no one can use it to control others, right? Darnell and Elena exchanged glances, momentarily stunned by the simplicity and audacity of the suggestion. An open-source engine model, Elena said slowly, considering the implications. One that specifically can't be weaponized, make the original design useless for warfare. Could that work? Darnell wondered aloud. Technically, yes, Elena confirmed. We'd need to modify the coolant system, remove the components designed for weapons integration, add fail-safes against military applications. But it's possible. For the first time in months, Darnell felt the spark of hope. His daughter, with a child's clarity, had identified a solution that had eluded them all. Over the following weeks, a new purpose energized their small group. Darnell and Elena worked feverishly to redesign the engine, stripping away its capacity for weaponization while enhancing its efficiency for civilian applications. Maya contributed unexpected insights, her untrained mind sometimes seeing solutions that escaped their expertise. What if we change this fuel intake? She suggested one evening, pointing to a schematic. Make it so it only works with normal gas, not the special military fuel? Darnell stared at his daughter in amazement. That's actually brilliant. Their work didn't go unnoticed. Darnell's supporters, a growing community of tech activists, ethical engineers, and ordinary citizens concerned about surveillance, organized an unprecedented livestream event. The public would vote, release the engine as open technology to benefit all, or bury it forever. Maya, displaying a maturity beyond her years, volunteered to host the stream. People will listen to a kid, she reasoned, especially one whose dad is being hunted for telling the truth. As preparations for the live stream continued, a new offer arrived. This one from Alexander Reese, newly appointed CEO of Neocom, a rising tech corporation positioning itself as the ethical alternative to companies like Wexler. We'd like to offer you exclusive development rights, Reese told Darnell during a secure video call. Your engine, reimagined for space colonization, clean energy, no military applications. The offer was staggering. Financial security, legitimate work, and end to running, yet something in Reese's carefully crafted pitch rang false. I need time to consider, Darnell said neutrally. After the call ended, a message arrived from Jonas, who had continued to work behind the scenes, monitoring corporate communications related to Mantis and its offshoots. Don't trust Reese, the message read. Neocom is funding Black Sun. They want the engine for themselves. I've been working as a double agent inside their systems. Also, been teaching Maya some hacking skills online. Hope that's okay. The revelation. of Jonas's continued involvement and his clandestine tutoring of Maya, explained her rapidly advancing technical abilities. What had seemed like natural talent had been supplemented by expert guidance. The night before the live stream, as they made final preparations in yet another temporary safe house, the security system Jonas had installed triggered a silent alarm. Someone had breached the perimeter. "Get Maya out," Darnell told Elena, reaching for the weapon they kept hidden beneath the couch. "There's no time," Elena replied, checking the security feed. "They're already surrounding the building." Unlike previous attacks, this one came with a face, a woman named Vega Harrison, former military specialist and now field commander for Black Sun. She entered alone, hands visible, seemingly unarmed. "Ms. Morales," she addressed Elena directly. "It's been a long time." Elena's face drained of color. "You two know each other?" Darnell asked, confused. "We worked together." "Before Wexler," Elena admitted. "On the drone program." Vega's smile was cold. "Until she sabotaged our guidance systems and disappeared with classified data. Data that could have saved lives. Data that was being used to kill civilians," Elena countered. "That's not your call to make." Vega's attention shifted to Darnell. "We don't want you, Johnson. We want her, and the engine designs. Give us both, and you and your daughter walk away. No more running." The standoff stretched for agonizing seconds. Then Elena moved, placing herself between Vega and the others. "Take me," she said quietly. "The original designs are on the drive in my pocket, but you let them go first." "Elena." "No," Darnell protested. "It's the only way," she insisted. "Maya needs her father. The world needs your engine. The right version of it." What happened next unfolded with terrible swiftness. Darnell reaching for Elena, Maya screaming, Vega moving with lethal precision. In the confusion, Elena created an opening for Darnell and Maya to escape through a back exit she'd prepared, for just such an emergency. The last words Elena spoke, blood seeping from a wound no doctor would heal, were meant for Darnell alone. "Promise me, let Maya decide. It's her world now, not ours." Outside, as sirens wailed in the distance, Darnell pulled a sobbing Maya into the night, his heart shattered, but his resolve hardened by Elena's sacrifice. They had lost a friend, a partner, a brilliant mind, but her final gift had been there, freedom, and the chance to complete what they'd started. "She believed in you," Darnell told Maya as they disappeared into the shadows. "In what we're doing." Maya wiped away tears with the back of her hand, her young face setting into lines of grim determination. "Then we don't waste it." The livestream began at exactly noon, broadcasting from a location that changed every 30 minutes to prevent tracking. Millions watched as Maya Johnson, 12 years old and carrying the weight of months on the run, addressed the world. "My name is Maya Johnson," she began, her voice steady despite her youth. "Most of you know my dad as the mechanic who exposed Project Mantis. But I want to tell you about my mom, Angela Johnson." A photograph appeared on screen, a woman with Maya's eyes and smile standing beside a younger Darnell. "My mom died when I was 6. They called it an accident, but we found out it might not have been." Maya took a deep breath. She was an engineer too, like my dad, and when big companies build things that can hurt people, sometimes the people who speak up get hurt instead. The camera widened to include Darnell, sitting beside his daughter, his presence solid and reassuring. "Elena Morales died 3 weeks ago," Maya continued. "She was helping us. She believed knowledge shouldn't be used against people." Her voice broke slightly, but she pressed on. "She told my dad to let me decide, so here's my decision." With a decisive keystroke, Maya initiated the upload of the modified engine designs to servers worldwide. "This engine belongs to everyone now. It's open to the world. No patents, no secrets, no weapons, just the power to help people." The response was immediate and overwhelming. The livestream counter surged past 10 million viewers. Social media exploded with reactions, The open-source release spread like wildfire through engineering forums and universities, with annotations and improvements added in real time by thousands of contributors. Within days, the first independent replications appeared. Engineering. Students in Mumbai building a small-scale version, a collective in Lagos adapting it for water purification, rural communities in Appalachia constructing generators to power homes off the grid. The corporate backlash was equally swift. Tech giants filed injunctions, claiming the design incorporated their proprietary technology. Government agencies expressed security concerns about unregulated engine production. Black Sun and similar contractors moved to shut down the decentralized network hosting the blueprints, but it was too late. The design had been mirrored across thousands of servers, shared through peer-to-peer networks, embedded in harmless-looking image files, and physically printed in libraries and community centers. The genie wouldn't go back in the bottle. Darnell, watching this unfold from yet another temporary hideout, felt a complex mixture of pride, grief, and uncertainty. They had accomplished something profound, but at terrible cost. Elena was gone. They were still fugitives. Maya's childhood had been irreparably altered. "Do you think it was worth it?" he asked Maya one evening, as they watched reports of the first community-built engine powering a hospital in a remote region long neglected by infrastructure development. Elena thought so. Maya replied simply, "So do I." As the weeks passed, their story gradually faded from headlines. Catherine Wexler resurfaced to testify against global defense contractors, her evidence leading to multiple convictions for illegal surveillance, fraud, and conspiracy. After completing her testimony, she disappeared from public view. One morning, a package arrived at their latest safe house, an impossibility given their security protocols. Inside was a childhood photograph of Catherine with a girl about Maya's age, the edges singed as if rescued from a fire. On the back, someone had drawn a wrench over a heart. No message, no signature, but the meaning was clear. Jonas, meanwhile, had transformed from reluctant whistleblower to respected public advocate. He established an organization dedicated to monitoring technology misuse, exposing corruption, and mentoring young people in ethical hacking and cybersecurity. Maya often participated in his online workshops, her technical skills growing exponentially under his guidance. "You could have a future in this," Jonas told her during one session. "The world needs watchdogs." In Atlanta, where the Wexler headquarters had once dominated the skyline, community activists organized a memorial at the site of the now demolished main building. There was no grand monument, no statue, just a small tree growing through a rusted car hood, placed there in the middle of the night. Rumors circulated that Maya Johnson herself had planted it, though few recognized the quiet girl in worn jeans who had come with her father to watch the planting from across the street, both of them keeping to the shadows, both still cautious after everything. 6 months after Elena's death, a letter arrived from Mr. Earl, now living quietly in a veterans community in New Mexico. His health was failing, the letter explained, but he had one last gift to offer. Enclosed was a set of identity documents, flawless in their craftsmanship, untraceable in their origin. "For the girl," the letter read. "And for you, if you're ready to stop running. I've seen brave men in my time, but none braver than you. Maya reminds me of every good man who never got a fair shot, and every woman who made sure justice didn't wait. I'm proud to have stood with you both." The letter was signed simply Earl, with a postscript. "The world needs fixers, son. Don't stop now." 2 weeks later, Mr. Earl Wilson passed peacefully in his sleep, having lived long enough to see the first community-built engine power the veterans' facility where he spent his final days. Darnell mourned him deeply, another loss in a journey marked by sacrifice. But Earl's final gift offered a possibility they hadn't dared consider for years: a stable home, a permanent address, a legitimate existence. "What do you think?" Darnell asked Maya as they discussed the possibilities. "We could settle somewhere. You could go to school, make friends." Maya considered this, her expression thoughtful beyond her years. "I'd like that," she admitted, "but I still want to help. With the engines, with making sure no one misuses them." "We can do both," Darnell promised. Earl was right. The world needs fixers. 5 years later, in a small workshop on the outskirts of Detroit, a young woman of 17 stood before a group of children from the local community center. Her hands were calloused from work, but her movements were precise as she held up a simple wrench for them to see. "This," she said, "is how my dad saved the world. Not by building something powerful, but by handing it over." The children clustered around her, eager to learn from the legendary wrench girl, Maya Johnson, whose online identity had become synonymous with grassroots engineering and technological empowerment. In the back of the workshop, Darnell watched with quiet pride. His hair was graying at the temples now, lines of experience etched around his eyes, but his hands were still strong, still capable of fixing whatever was broken. They had settled in Detroit 3 years earlier, drawn by the city's spirit of reinvention and its need for exactly their skills. Their workshop, Johnson Motors, specialized in converting conventional vehicles to run on the open-source engine design that had changed the world. Maya had refused invitations to speak at major conferences and summits, choosing instead to work directly with community groups, teaching practical skills and ethical technology use. Her reputation had grown not through publicity, but through the ever-widening circle of people whose lives she had helped transform. Darnell had his own reputation. Stories circulated about the mechanic who had exposed Mantis, who had sacrificed everything for the truth. Some said he taught engineering in South America under an assumed name. Others claimed he worked with indigenous communities, building clean water systems in remote regions. The truth was both simpler and more profound. He had returned to his roots, fixing what was broken, teaching others to do the same, and ensuring the technology he had helped unleash remained in service to humanity, rather than a tool for control. As Maya finished her demonstration and the children crowded around a disassembled engine, Darnell stepped outside to check a delivery. A sleek electric car had pulled up, its design subtly different from standard models. The driver's window lowered to reveal a woman in her 60s, elegant even in casual clothes. Catherine Wexler's hair was silver now, her face lined, but still recognizable. "The modifications are holding up well," she said, nodding toward the engine compartment. "My engineers could learn from you." "Catherine," Darnell acknowledged, neither hostile nor particularly warm. Their relationship had evolved into something complex, not quite friendship, but a grudging mutual respect forged in shared history.